Good evening and welcome to The World Today. We pay tribute tonight to the great Caribbean and Latin American writer Wilson Harris, who died a few weeks ago. Wilson was not as well known as he deserved to be. One reason for that was that he made no concessions whatsoever to literary fashions. Secondly, as a post-colonial writer, he refused to treat post-colonial peoples exclusively as victims. And this separated him in some ways from many other novelists and writers of the immediate post-colonial era. So Wilson Harris gripped me like few other writers have. And when Channel 4 asked me to set up a company to produce documentaries for them, one of the first people I chose was Wilson Harris. He was amazed. And he said, "Tell me something honestly. Why do you want to make a documentary about me?" I said, "Because you're very difficult and it's a challenge to put you on the small screen if we can." And at the end, he was extremely happy with the product. He liked it, he told me, because it merged with his writing style, which was an enormous tribute to the director Colin Nutley. What of his writing style? It was described by his obituarist in The Guardian in the following words. "The style he developed," wrote the obituarist, "succeeded in conveying what William Blake called a fourfold vision. Grounded in the real world, transformed by metaphor, cultivating empathy, and having a universal perspective." Where did this come from? In his Guiana quartet, Wilson Harris brought to life his experience as a surveyor in the jungles of Guiana. He said to me that once you have been into these forests, you can get lost. His stepfather had gone on a surveying mission ages ago and had never come out again, disappeared, presumed drowned, killed. These landscapes that haunted him never left his mind. He lived in Ipswich, not far from London. Nothing could be more different than the forests of Guiana than Ipswich. But he said that the images stayed in his head. He had married an English woman. They lived together. She was an enormous support to him, died well before him. And it was after she died that Wilson accepted a knighthood, which surprised me greatly, because very few of my friends have accepted knighthoods. And I sent him a note saying, "Are you not well, Wilson? What on earth caused you to accept this?" I never received a reply. Maybe he was angry, maybe he didn't get it, I don't know. But that was the only flaw in an otherwise amazing career. And this film you're about to see is extracted from a 60-minute film based on one of his novellas, Da Silva. So enjoy it and think about Wilson Harris, not so well known now in the Caribbean either or in Latin America, but that is the culture that produced him.
We have come to a very serious time in our history, in which we have to ask ourselves whether the direction we are pursuing is wrong, whether the sails we have put up, under which we move, are oriented to the wrong trend, the wrong wind, the wrong tide, whether we have to turn and go in a different direction, completely different direction. The questions we have to ask ourselves about nature. Nature ails. If one looks, for example, at the fantastic films of outer space, which are simulated, what do you see? You see meteors striking planets, gouging out great bits of planets, causing explosions as if those planets are vomiting, they're ill. There is an ailment running through nature, and we have to see that all of us, in some degree, have caught the virus.
Roger, Columbia.
You're mad, De Silva. You live by fictions, De Silva.
The leaves of autumn in their splendor are fossil bonfires, are summer's deep-seated suns. So one dies in order to sit still, to lie still, in order to arise, to fly within a marvel of opposites. Each intimate campaign with a stranger season in oneself called winter chair or summer tree is born of unfathomable tenses, neither past nor future, that take one inevitably by surprise.
You're mad, De Silva. You're mad, De Silva. You're mad, De Silva. You're mad, De Silva.
De Silva! You hit me quite hard. You're flying in your sleep.
It's my old dream again.
You and your old dreams. I suppose he sees me as a bone or a fish of rainbow colors. Something quite fabulous. Fabulously vulgar. He's mad, of course. Runs in every painter's blood. My poor De Silva. Christian name spelt with a capital D. De Silva. Surname with a common D. De Silva. De Silva, De Silva. He paints me to conceive species possessed of abnormal yet natural senses. Animal sight, sound, eye, ear. A flying Madonna. And I give him his miracle. Yes, I do. I also give him the money he needs to buy bread, to buy food.
I led many expeditions into the heartland of the Guianas. And one of the things that struck me was that many members of the crew were oblivious of the great voyages that had occurred, that had, in a sense, deposited them in the Americas. The voyage has immense value because the voyage has within it something, I would say, that is divine. The voyage is always an exploration. It's a seeking. It's a searching. It's a quest for value. Now that quest may be overlaid by all sorts of matters to do with greed and lust and violence. But under that value remains.
De Silva was born in Brazil, of Spanish and Portuguese parents, invisible black antecedents as well. Seminal shadows they seemed in the Madonna pool, extending up into the Andes, where fire was snow. He was adopted by a British ambassador, Sir Giles Marsden Prince, at the age of 5, when the orphanage to which he had been taken at the age of 2 collapsed under a cyclone and a flood. He came to England in an aeroplane, a child with a long shadow, born of mixed blood, mixed elements. Dark blue oceanic sky, silver and apple moons, drowned stars and suns, as he confessed in every self-portrait. Jen was born in Peru, and in claiming a distant cousinship to Goga, who himself claimed descent from an Inca princess, established beyond a shadow of a doubt, if not a relationship to God, to Kafi's black god, Legba, then to an aristocracy of paint and wealth. The marketplace of the Madonna come full circle when one least expects it in a painter's canvas. As though de Silva were himself husband to the coin on another man's circumnavigational brush. These assets of stock market fable were confirmed in the small fortune, the pragmatic dowry, with which she came into his arms.
I'm coming.
Legba Gothy. Legba Gothy. That's my name.
I advertised, didn't I?
Or did we meet somewhere before?
Black model wanted by painter. Legba Coffee. Legba, god of the netted crossroads, and Coffee, 18th century black rebel.
Coffee's dignity is the claim of every rebel, black or white, to restore a lost age, a lost sovereignty.
There is a kind of drowned resemblance there to Magellan, I am sure. A stiff-necked self-portrait, I would say.
For many long years, Magellan sailed the green seas of darkness. And you know, he dreamt of conversing with the devil about making his fortune, but there wasn't a penny in it. He lived on a subsistence allowance from popes, kings, and queens. So you see, I paint him as a man with the appearances of great fortune, with proprietorship of the globe, but in fact, not a dime to his name. He died, yet he lives.
A Portuguese adventurer who exploited a Spanish fleet. A Spanish handout, manned it with a cosmopolitan crew, a cosmopolitan handout. The whole world was there. There was murder, mutiny, and wreck. 102 Spaniards, 6 Greeks, 6 colored men, 1 Bristol gunner, 2 Irishmen, 1 Moroccan, 1 Ocean, 25 Italians, 17 French, 40 Basques, and 5 Flemish. Not to speak of the forced Arawak marches for provisions, forced Arawak recruits. I tell you, the whole of the world was there. 1 ship survived. Magellan himself, he never encircled the globe. He died on a foreign beach, the Philippines, long before the end of the journey. I cannot for the likes of me see why he's accounted for so great.
There's a mystery of total credit. A man of no fortune, and yet...
Why do you have to paint him into yourself?
I must. One paints into one's flesh the mystery of the world's injustice. Don't you see? Total credit is given to a single man, a single god, if you like, for much that a nameless crew has accomplished. That is the way of the world, my dear Coffee. The world's great dead are self-spawned. No wonder the Furies come to redress the balance of guilt in the living. The Madonna Pool, our 20th century sea. That is why you are here.
I was conscripted. I had no choice.
So was I.
Legba is really an African god. But one notes that he has a lame leg. So he's vulnerable. On the other hand, he's a god. He's divine. Now, this is nothing new. One sees it with the Christian faith. Christ, the crucified Christ, is vulnerable, yet the Son of God. So we have Legba, vulnerable, yet divine. And on top of that, Coffee, who is the rebel, the black rebel who fought in South America. That complex of forces is obviously a complex that is explosive. Each painting is a kind of intimate voyage, so that as the Silva moves in the street, he moves in his paintings. As he moves in his studio, he moves in his paintings.
I see you now, penetrated, violated by God. The God I wish to imply in this instance is economic deity, chaos, industry, fashion. That is why I take it you're steeped in all this, even as you discard everything. You remain. I can hardly bear it. But somehow or other you remain, like some ancient design one paints on a plate that remains under the cloudy remnants of a meal. Grease of abuse. Genetics of the spirit. Sounds mad, doesn't it? God eats his cake and has it. That's you.
You're mad, De Silva.
There was a sense in which De Silva loathed Manya. Loathed the mystery of abused environment, loathed genetics of irony, loathed imprints of changelessness and unconsumed morsels of spirit that left a trail of disorder in their wake. Indeed, in such a context of immaterial consumption, he wished to erase her entirely from view. It may already have ceased to exist, like a garment one exchanges for changelessness. But in fact, it holds one still, like a pregnant frame. As Manya held him still, through an attachment he conceived to her child Paul, who was 5 years old. An attachment that seemed to illumine a variety of dark coincidence. Jen's stock market assets made it possible for him to pay Manya to work as a model. Made it possible for him to paint without economic bother. And in that degree, his attachment to the canvas of Manya's Paul appeared to arch through Gauguin's Europe into Jen's South American bank, through Manya's cul-de-sac into hollow Damascus, as if they were all black milestones that may have existed long before he was born, out of which now the spark of the genie
sprang.
Surely you know how irresponsible she is. There are mornings when Paul comes to school like a child who has neither eaten nor slept. He falls asleep on a bench. It's dreadful the way she lives. I know she gives him affection, but let's face it, he's badly neglected all the same. People come to see her about commissions, advertisements, and God knows what at all hours of day and night. I understand you're painting her now. She's intrigued by your Madonna nonsense. Madonnas of state, Madonnas of school, Madonna Paul. The child is left to follow his own head, and it does him no good, Mr. De Silva. She tells me you're much attached to him, and that's why I've come to see you.
It's curious. I could swear we've met somewhere before. Of course, Manya has spoken of you, but it's more than that. It's something physical almost, the feeling we've met.
I'm not one of your models, you know.
I know what it is. I remember now. I saw you on TV. That's it. I distinctly remember I made a sketch.
I live to regret it.
It was a program on abortion.
And I made a complete fool of myself.
Not at all. You spoke bravely. I was impressed. I remember trying to brighten your image on the screen by turning a knob or two. There was a doctor on the TV program. He was on your side. He talked about how women were abused. On the other hand, there was a Victorian lady, a Mrs. Redcastle.
A bitch. She provoked me. That's why I spoke of myself and the abortion I'd had. I thought it might give additional weight to the point I was making about women who may find they're pregnant and cannot afford to be, who come face to face with limits and freedoms and responsibilities.
Her voice was cold and eloquent, as if she were pulling him down into a pool. And he felt the beautiful marble flesh she wore under her breasts and along her thighs. He touched a scar, touched it with a finger, broke the paint with a knife, watched her closely as they arose together from the pool of paint, divided by darkness and light. She had acquired a foreign scar or two on her body of paint. And yet this scar, which he noted again as his eyes fell upon her, had been sculpted by his hand, as if to confirm another hand, the hand of the painter-surgeon she had employed to topple or reverse the hubris of Adam.
If I may say so, the whole discussion came to life when you spoke for a moment or two about yourself. I know you were provoked. It was a courageous thing to do. And yet, I saw a scar come to your lips all of a sudden, an iciness, a resolution. I could see the limits of paradise forgotten, the stigmata of heaven, of Eden.
Jan left for South America a month or so after Kate Robinson had been to see him. She had been summoned to her dying father's bedside.